Hi everyone. I think it's 5 past 11, so I think we can get started. Chris, are you there? Are we okay to start? um, can I get some thumbs up if you're seeing my screen? If you can hear me all right? Perfect. Great. Thank you. Okay. Great. So I think we can get started. Perfect. So thanks everyone for being here and welcome to this webinar. As we've been communicating through our social media, we want to talk about today. It's what we believe the industry is not talking about enough when talking about automating processes. We see everyone talking about automating document processing throughout the origination process, but we see very few players and thought leaders talking about how this affects the actual credit decision, which at the end of the day is the most important part of originating deals in our industry, right? So that's what we want to talk about today. Let me see just if this works. Perfect. So, of course, throughout this conversation, what we're going to be able to argue is that these are two completely different goals, right? Automating a process does not necessarily mean improving a credit decision, and we're going to walk you through a few of the arguments and then factors that affect the different goals. Before we get started, we jump right into the content. Um, I do want to kind of give a quick introduction on myself and Kin. We're going to be spending the next half hour or 40 minutes together. So I want to give you a bit of context for. I see some familiar names in the audience, some of our existing customers, but I also see some new names. So I want to start by introducing myself. My name is Patricio. I lead product at Kin Analytics. And most of my career, I've spent on the credit decisioning side of equipment finance, building credit scoring models, working with underwriting teams, getting deep into the data that drives actual lending decisions. And the reason why Keen moved into exploring some of the challenges around automating processes within equipment finance is not because we believe this is a something trendy to be part of, right? It's because we kept finding that the credit models that we built downstream were being constrained by the data that had been damaged upstream, right? So the value that the credit model, the credit decisioning systems that we were creating for customers, the value that these systems produced was being diluted because everything leading up to this decision point was broken. Okay, so we truly believe that to really fix how decisions are made in our industry, we need to fix the end to end on how data flows into your systems and how this data it's feed into how you make those decisions. Okay, um, perfect. So now I do want to kind of provide a quick framing on the problem that we're going to be addressing in this webinar. And I want to start that by doing sharing a few key metrics. And I think just a second here. There we go. So for the last 2 years, Keen Analytics has had numerous conversations with dozens of, of lenders in the industry, with customers, leads, partners, and we have really explored what are the biggest challenges driving bottlenecks, inefficiencies, and costs in the industry. And we have consistently find the same trends and the same consistent answers through our discovery sessions. So as you can see on the screen here, I have laid out what are the most frequent biggest bottlenecks when we talk with our customers. And as you can see, the top three, we have application intake and submissions, know your business, know your customer processes, and documentation and funding, which is quite interesting for a couple of reasons here. Um, as you can see, especially if we focus on number 1 and number 3, so application intake and document and funding, these are two processes that are very characterized by being very document intensive. There's a lot of document handling in this part of the origination process. So yeah, this provides clear evidence that this problem that we're going to be addressing in this conversation, if you are having these problems, you should know, right, that you are not alone in this. This is a widespread concern and issue across the industry. It's quite common, right? So it's something that it's affecting the industry across the board. The second thing I want to mention to be able to frame the problem a bit better. Sorry, I have a few issues with these slides. It also provide a few numbers to really get a dimension, a magnitude of how big is this problem. So the economics aren't subtle. Equipment finance is in a margin squeeze right now, and we see that this is a structural problem. So here we have a few key metrics based on some reports from the industry. The expenses have increased in 12.7% in the last year, while business volume has only increased 3.1%, right? So we see that costs and expenses to be able to originate new business volume, it's increasing at a higher pace than the actual new business volume. And also through some investigations, we know that around 50 to 70% of the costs of originate a deal is tied to operational costs, right? So on average, around $5,000 to $7,000 is basically what costs a lender in the industry to originate a deal, and 50 to 70% of that cost is tied to some operational costs, including overhead and some other operational costs. So as you can see, this is a quite big problem, right? And we can clearly tie these metrics to everything that goes behind running these processes, which, as I mentioned, is really characterized by a lot of manual processes, a lot of document handling, manual input into your systems, downloading, uploading documents. So this is a very costly bottleneck to have within your origination process. Now, we have identified through many shadowing sessions and also being able to have the opportunity to solve these challenges with some of our customers, we've been able to identify four main factors that are driving these inefficiencies and problems when dealing with processing documents, submissions, docs, and funding. The first one has to do with rekeying a lot of data manually, right? So typically how these processes start is either through some applications that you receive in a portal, in an email, through a lot of attachments, and then you have your team trying to source relevant information from these documents and then manually typing that information into the system. So of course, apart from being super inefficient, it's also prone to a lot of errors that later affect the later stages of the process, including the actual risk assessment. The second one is format inconsistency. We work in an industry that it's, there are multiple channels. Many of the lenders are utilizing a lot of vendor relationships or using brokers for sourcing deals, right? And this typically comes with the cost of having many inconsistent and different formatting, right? So you're receiving scanned documents, PDFs, handwritten forms, digital forms, receiving them through portals, through email, sometimes even fax, right? So there's tons of different formats to work with, which again just makes the problem even bigger. Another quite important issue throughout the process that we see is missing information. So either a key document that was missing, or incomplete information within those documents, right? Key fields within the application form that were not filled out by your brokers, by your dealers, or the end customer. And the problem here is that we don't have the systems to do these validations up front. So what happens is that your sales or operations teams, driven by trying to get deals as fast as possible to credit, input this information manually into your system, they are not able to capture upfront that there's some key information missing. So then it's credit or it's funding responsible for actually making the audit and fixing all these quality data quality issues. And the fourth issue that we see is conflicting sources. So sometimes within the same application package, you may have information that is conflicting between the different documents. So you may have an application form that includes an address and then some other ID document that has another address listed for the guarantor, or some mismatches into specific details on the name that may seem subtle, but actually at the end of the day really affect the capability of your team to really making sure that you're working with the right company and that you're being able to use that information to go and consult other information that you need from bureaus or any other sources, right? So as we want to be kind of also sharing with you our thoughts on this, and you can already see a trend here, even though this problem at the first glance may seem as an operational problem, something that needs to be automated, streamlined, add efficiency, at the end of the day, this also becomes a quite big source for a risk problem, right? Because you're having the process that is intended to source correct quality data into your risk decisioning systems is actually not doing so, right? So you are feeding wrong data, incomplete data, missing data into your risk decisioning models and processes. And at the end of the day, what happens is that you might be making faster decisions if you automate this, but not necessarily right decisions, right? So this is one of the first takeaways from this session that we would like you to receive, which is basically that speed without data integrity is just a risk amplifier. Okay, so when we are thinking about how do we automate processes within our origination flow, we need to make sure that the way we automate these processes is not at the expense of quality. Otherwise, we're just taking an extra risk of just amplifying wrong data, missing data that can lead to bad decisions later in the process. Perfect. So now kind of moving a bit from the problem now to how to address this problem, a bit of talking about solutions out in the market and how we can fix this problem. I want to talk first about what we see being surfaced as the most common approach, which I don't know if you've also seen this in the market, but we've seen in the last couple of years a lot of vendors, of players bringing new AI-driven automation tools into the market to fix exactly what we're discussing: document processing, streamlining the data intake to your credit team. And where we see that these solutions excel is in the implementation speed, right? So true to their plug and play offering, these solutions can be live and providing value to you in a matter of days, which is, of course, amazing. And we also see an increasing sophistication and adoption of AI within these tools, right? So these are companies, providers that are really adopting AI at a really good pace, which of course we can expect that this is going to translate into better, more accurate results, which is extremely valuable for lenders like you, who are trying to fix this problem. But the problem or the risk that we see with these types of solutions that we want to share with you is that their generic nature makes them well designed for the happy path, right? For the 60-70% of cases that are clean, predictable, easy to handle. But the problem is that they break the moment reality shows up, the moment you get these wrongly called edge cases, which are not really edge cases in our industry. They're really just normal business, right? So in complex industries like equipment finance, these types of wrongly called edge cases are just normal business day to day, right? And that's where these generic tools break and start providing the value that they intend to provide. The second thing I want to share, and I'm sure all of you have already been experiencing this either personally or through embedding some of these new AI technology into your own business. But the thing is that AI is making building software a lot easier and cheaper every week, right? So what this confirms is that the technology aspect of a solution is no longer the hard part to build, right? Because basically software is being commoditized in real time as we speak, right? So if we take ourselves back a few years before AI, lenders in this case, or any company trying to implement technology into their processes, had to choose between mainly two options. The first one was developing something custom, which typically was very expensive to build and to maintain, and also pretty slow to implement, right? It took a lot of months or maybe even a year to implement something custom. And the other option was picking an off-the-shelf solution from the market, like a software as a service, which was much affordable in terms of costs upfront, a lot easier and faster to implement. But here the trade-off was that you were tying yourself to a more of a generic solution that again was intended to work for the majority of cases, but not in the context of all the specifics of your business. But what we see as an emerging trend, especially in this year, is that this trade-off does no longer exist. We are already getting into a point where we no longer have to pick between one or the other. Right now, custom technology can be built to the exact specifications of your business at a comparable price and speed, um, in comparison to these off-the-shelf solutions, right? So this AI is making implementing technology or custom technology specific to your business more economically viable, every week, right? This is becoming a trend every week. Um, Perfect. So perfect. So here, we want to show you something in practice. Before we do so, I do just want to take a minute to kind of like lay out a few of the key insights or takeaways we have discussed so far. So the first thing I do want to mention is that the problem surrounding automating document processing, how do we streamline data intake, docs and funding, is a real problem in our industry. As you can see, it's something that it's a pain that everyone is suffering across the board. And as we also saw with some of the metrics, it produces real costs to businesses, right? So it definitely is a real problem worth solving, worth addressing, and that if addressed correctly, will have a big impact on your business, right? So that's the first key takeaway. The second key takeaway that I want to mention up to now, it's that we truly want to motivate you to start thinking about these operational bottlenecks and automation problems as from like a risk first approach. Because at the end of the day, what lenders want to do is they want to decision deals better, right? They want to be able to segment risk better and make sure that their portfolio stays healthy. So any effort you do at the front end, automating processes, bringing AI, bringing automation, should be with a major goal of just keep on improving and enhancing how you make credit decisions. Okay, you have to be careful that if you automate a process without taking into account the risk aspect of it, what you could be walking into is in a scenario where you are just automating things but not necessarily supporting better decisions, right? Just getting wrong, bad, missing data faster into your decisioning process, which is not ideal and where we don't want to be. And the third insights that we have discussed so far, it's that when thinking about implementing AI and technology, the actual technology layer of the solutions is no longer the biggest bottleneck or the biggest challenge, right? AI is allowing us to develop and implement technology faster and easier, even like more customized without the trade-off of cost and speed. So when you're thinking about addressing these challenges with technology, don't think about the solution or the technological layer, right? Think about the problem you're trying to solve. That's really the key for solving these these problems. We're going to get back to this last insight. We're going to delve a bit deeper into that insight in a minute. But before we do so, I want to kind of take a few minutes to kind of prove you this last point of how easy it is to build technology with AI nowadays. So to do so, I want to show you a super quick like MVP sort of AI driven workflow of how to automate the intake process just by using some prompts and some nice AI tools. So to do so, let me just go back to the Zoom call and share my screen right here. Okay, can I get some thumbs up if you are now seeing my other screen? You should be seeing my Claude platform here. Perfect, thank you. Okay, so let's start with the most simple thing, right? So if tomorrow we wanted to already bring some efficiency to our process on how we source these documents, process them, and just streamline this process a bit more without any custom software in between, just leveraging some tools that are already are our disposal, how would that look, right? So what we were brainstorming with our team is let's try to use Claude in this case, but any other tool could work, to get this process working with some simple prompts. I do want to give you a warning or a heads up. Claude has been acting up this morning. There seems to be some issues with their servers. It was quite slow. So I'll try to run it now. Hopefully it works, but if not, I have also the clean process I ran yesterday, so we might be able to look at that, but hopefully it works. It will work. It's just that it was taking a lot more time than what we expected. So here's what I want to show you. Just 1 second. Can you confirm if you're seeing my complete screen or you're seeing my Gmail right now?
No, but we're only seeing your co-work screen.
Let me share the whole screen then. Screen 1. What about there? Do you see me switching between screens?
We do see the switching, yep.
Perfect, thank you. So here's like the scenario we wanna kind of show you. So let's say that we've received a credit application in our inbox, which is one of the most common channels of how you source credit applications, right? A broker, a dealer just sends you an email with the information and the attachments. And typically what you would do is you would open the email, you would download the documents, you would scan each of the documents, looking for the specific fields that you need. You would maybe type them into a spreadsheet or maybe directly into your CRM, one by one, switching between screens, right? A lot of manual processes. We see a lot of our customers doing this, and this is a process that can take between 30 minutes and up to an hour, right? So it's quite slow and manual. So what I want to show you, it's basically just working from our AI. I'm going to ask it to scan my email. Right here. Okay, so I'm just going to ask it to search my Gmail inbox, look for an email that looks like a new credit application, and extract the documents and attach them to the Google Drive. So as we wait for the AI to do this, I want to start also sharing with you what we as Kin have found in the different stages of this process. So let's start with intake. So here, the biggest challenge we see is that most of lenders don't have a unique intake channel. They have multiple intake channels. So some broker dealers submit their applications through email, but then you may also have a proprietary portal where some of your brokers or dealers are logging in and uploading the information, or you may be using third-party portals as well, right, to receive applications from other brokers. So one of the key challenges that you have to start thinking about when automating this part is making sure that you have a tool. that is able to capture applications from any of the channels you're currently working with, right? So at the end of the day, we want a system, a tool, an AI in this case, that allows you to streamline things, but it needs to be connected within any of the channels you have. One of the errors we've seen with some customers is trying to force their brokers and dealers to move into the specific channel they want, for example, a portal, right? Because it's just easier to already receive all the data in a digital format, right? And kind of move this responsibility of the intake to your brokers and dealers. But also it's not ideal because, of course, as you may imagine, they are receiving these types of requests from every other lender in the industry, right? So what we see as being a nice in-between step, it's like leveraging technology to remove all of these manual tasks from your team, but not requiring or not moving these manual tasks to another party within the process, right? So allowing everyone do their process the way they want, but adding efficiency to that. So here, I think we have finalized this first one. So I'm gonna show you what just happened. So basically, these three attachments that we had in the email were uploaded to the Google Drive. So now let me go with the second prompt, which I'm actually gonna ask the AI to go to this Google Drive folder, read the documents, OCR them, and extract the relevant information. Okay. So as we wait the AI to perform this task, now I want to mention the second big step, which is sourcing the relevant information from the document. So right now, what the industry is typically doing is you're having someone from your team scanning through multiple documents, trying to spot the specific fields you need. And if it's a handwritten form, it makes it just tougher, a task to perform. This is the part where you can really leverage AI through OCR, optical character recognition techniques. So have your AI just read the document for you and have this AI being trained to identify the specific fields that you need. So customer name, addresses, guarantor's name and addresses, sourcing specific dates from a driver's license or ID, or in your asset spec sheet, automatically grabbing the make, the model, the year, the VIN, if it's a truck, the value of the asset. So everything that your team finds themselves doing manually right now could be easily automated through AI, and through the solutions we have helped our customers implement. This is a quite easy process and quite fast process. In a matter of seconds, you can have the AI scan multiple documents and extract this relevant information. And the nice thing is that this technology has been evolving significantly and a really fast pace in these latest years. If we were talking about this maybe 2 years ago, it wouldn't be as robust enough to be able to handle multiple formats or handwritten forms. But right now, it's a point where it is really excelling at this. So in the solution we have implemented, just to give you a benchmark, we're seeing accuracy levels above 97%, which is amazing, right? So yeah, if any of you are thinking about leveraging AI for document processing, it's the perfect timing. The technology has matured enough for this to be a process you can trust and you can scale. So it's definitely the perfect timing to start exploring these types of solutions. Okay. Okay, so we've covered right now kind of intake, which I'm really recommending you to take into account these multiple intake channels that you may have. I'm not trying to force your dealers or brokers into a single one, but actually leveraging technology to try to address all of them through a streamlined process. Second thing we talk is about moving away from a manual scanning of documents through leveraging AI to OCR and extract this data for you. The third thing I want to mention is validations. We see very, very few players in the industry doing validations at the submission stage. So basically what happens is submissions teams are motivated to move fast, to just grab documents, grab relevant information, create the record in the CRM, and then push it to credit, right? They're motivated, they're moved by speed, and they don't have the right tools to be able to capture inconsistent data, missing information, alerts up front. So of course they're not going to spend an extra minute or two trying to do so if, right, that's not within their core responsibilities. But again, through technology, this is something that could be easily automated, right? If you already have an AI that is scanning through your documents, it doesn't take any extra effort to have your policies and your rules embedded into how the AI is operating, so it can do these automated checks for you. So, for example, you require a SSN, right? And the SSN is missing from the application form, automatically alert your operations team and not allow the application to move to credit if these key things have not been validated and are not complete. Because at the end of the day, if you do so, what's happening is that you are just moving the validation piece downstream, right? Anyone is going to eventually have to do those validations, whether that's the credit analyst, whether it's docs on funding, but someone is going to have to do that. So it may seem like you're saving some minutes up front, but then you're just accumulating a lot of time and efficiencies downstream, right? And you're creating a bigger bottleneck when you're getting into the funding stage. Okay, so now the AI has finalized the process. So as you can see here, and maybe I'll show you a bit how these documents look before we look at the results. We had an ASIC spec sheet like this, okay, where you have information on the truck and also some value information. We had a credit application that was handwritten, as you can see, quite tough to read and to analyze. And we also had an ID, a driver's license like this. So now let's go and see the results. So as you can see here, for the credit application, it was able to extract basically all the information that we were seeing. Maybe, I don't know if that's better. We can see it kind of like side by side, maybe. If someone can confirm that you're seeing both, that would be great.
Yeah, we'll see in it.
Okay. Here for the what is this? This is for the ASIC spec sheet, right? So let me open this one right here. Right, so 2020 international, 182 miles, 82,000 miles. And we can see here, it matches. Where are the miles? Here are the miles, they match. And as you can see, this format is not like super structured, right? It's not like we have like a table that says miles and gives you the value, manufacturer and gives you the value. It was kind of all over the place, and the AI was able to extract this pretty accurately, as you can see here in the structured format, right? So you have the condition, you have all the information that you may need here, and then also from the driver's license. Let's look at that real quick. Yeah, we have all the information here as well. So imagine, for example, here, something that you may find yourself wanting to confirm, like if the driver license is not expired, right? Something that your team would have to spend an extra minute or two trying to scan through the ID. The AI could immediately just create a rule to validate that the license is not expired. So those are the type of upfront validation and policy checks that could be automated effortlessly and would prevent a lot of downstream issues in your process. Okay, and then just to finalize this quick demo, I'm just gonna ask the AI to grab all of this information and organize it in a more structured way based on the objects that we typically find ourselves working in our CRMs, like the applicant, the business, and things like that. So you have it right here, right? So now in this like super MVP demo that we just showed, you could just be copy and pasting this into your CRM. And I'm sure through this process, again, it's super like uh, um, uh, a simple process, but will be saving you a lot of minutes into doing this manually otherwise, right? So with that in mind, yeah, I think we can now move on. Let me go back to the presentation. Okay, so why did we show you this, right? For a couple of reasons. The first one is that I really want to kind of give you a sense on how advanced technology and AI is at the moment, that is really allowing us to build things really fast and in a really efficient way. Also kind of showing you that you don't need to create a extremely complex system and software to start leveraging these tools in your day-to-day. And also to show you one of the key takeaways or insights we were discussing before, which technology is no longer a competitive advantage in the sense that everyone is going to be able to build technology, right? So I hope this example kind of provided some proof on that. But of course, I also want to be super transparent and be honest in the sense that what I just showed you might be adding some efficiencies, but is by no means close to being something that would be production ready or that would be ready to use in your day to day and scale with your business. Because there are a lot of constraints around this and things that need to be solved to make this, of course, something that works in production. And that's what we do with our customers. And I can share some insights on that in a minute. Okay. Perfect. So what would be the gap between leveraging this technology in a simple tool versus actually having a system that really transforms your business? So a couple of things I want to mention. The first one is integrations. So for any of this technology to really work and transform your business, it needs to be seamlessly integrated to your existing systems. So whether you're using a portal, you're using email for intake, these tools should be automatically integrated, right? You don't want to be prompting every time you need to run these workflows. They should be already integrated. And also on the other side of the process, they should be integrated to your CRM. So with just one click, you do a seamless sync into your system. And in a matter of 2 minutes, you have a new application flowing from inbox to your CRM and ready to be reviewed by your credit team. The second thing that needs to be taken into consideration is credit policy and edge case handling. So all of these accumulated years of business expertise that is quite tailored to your specific business should be embedded into this technology. So all your policy, all your rules, all your checks, all the things that you consider are like no goals, red flags that should be stopping an application from moving into credit, or any alerts that you should be making upfront so that your operations teams goes right away and asks for clarification to your dealers and brokers. All of that logic should be embedded here. This should not sit outside of the system. So that this should just be part of the process. And the other thing I do want to mention is that when working with these technologies, you're going to find that there's so many exceptions and edge cases that are just natural to your business, that is important that you have the flexibility to adapt your technology to those cases and not the other way around, right? You don't want your business to be forced into the ways of a generic tool. You want your technology to adapt to the way your business runs. So that's also quite important to consider. So if we are arguing that technology, the technological aspect of a solution is not longer the hardest part to address, then I now want to talk about what it actually takes to implement the AI and technology correctly, right? What are the actual bottlenecks or things you need to consider when looking to either implement this in-house with your team or looking for a vendor that can support you into implementing these sorts of technologies. So what we have learned throughout the years of living inside this process with our customers is that the biggest bottlenecks or the really hard parts to navigate is business complexity. It's the 2 to 3 systems that you currently use, some of them legacy that don't talk well to each other and are hard to work with when trying to implement technology. It's the years and years of data that may have been stored in not in the most efficient way and is not readily available to be used for AI or any sort of technology. It's all of these incredible expertise and knowledge that you have on your business, but only sits in your head and your leaderships and management heads, but nowhere else, right? That needs to be extracted and embedded into these technologies. So those are actually the biggest bottlenecks. Those are the things, the business complexities that we need to navigate when trying to correctly implement AI. That's the actual key, right? If you are going to implement this in-house with your team, or you're going to bring a vendor like Keen that can help you implement these types of things, you really need to be thinking about subject matter expertise, knowledge, context, and understanding of your business. That's the most important factors into driving a successful AI implementation, not the technological aspect. As I mentioned, every week implementing technology is becoming easier and easier, right? So that's just going to be a commodity. It's just going to be a tool at our disposal to really bring value, but it's not going to be the key aspect of this. So what do we recommend more specifically when you are exploring implementing these types of solutions? If you want to solve your how you process documents through your origination flow, for example, the first one, I want to share like two principles. The first one is one that we call forward deployed, which is having this mindset of not only observing problems from a distance, but actually living the problems. So if you were to implement this in-house with your team, what we recommend is bringing someone that is a bridge between technology and business needs. That is someone that can speak, can sit down with a business stakeholder to understand their actual pains and problems, and can actually see those problems and feel those problems and understand them, and then has the capability to translating that into potential technological solutions. And to do so, the best way of doing that is getting as close as possible to the problems, right? So whether, again, you bring an external vendor or you have an internal team, what we recommend is having this team that is working on this problem to really live the problem, to sit down next to the user that is experiencing the bottlenecks and the issues, if possible, making this person actually run those workflows and those processes, and make this person be the user and feel those pains. So kind of like learn by doing, not by observing. And through that knowledge that you gain from actually doing the things, you're going to be building with context, not around it, right? So any technology that you implement is going to have a lot of context built into it, which is going to be key. And the third thing that we recommend is always starting by tying any sort of technological implementation effort to a specific metric that you can measure that is tied to a business outcome. So every company wants to implement technology with the purpose of moving the needle on some business outcome, right? More approvals, less defaults, more efficiency, less turnaround time. So it's important that you identify these metrics upfront, and you know exactly where you're starting off. And as you implement these technologies, you can clearly see whether those metrics are moving or not, right? And you shouldn't stop until you actually have proof that these metrics are improving. The worst thing you can do is just throwing a new tool to your team and just forcing them to use it, and don't have the actual proof or system to track whether this new tool is actually adding the value that you intended. The second thing that we want to recommend when implementing technology is that you implement a robust but flexible toolkit, meaning that you need to have technology that evolves with your business. So we're living in an era that AI is pushing the boundaries of what's possible. It's bringing innovation every week, every day. It's making building software and technology easier every day. But this also means that maybe the most relevant tools and the most powerful tools that we have at our disposal today are not going to be the same tools or the best tools 3 4 months from now, right? So you have to make sure that the way you build your technology stack, it's flexible enough to be able to adapt potential new technologies in the future. So to give you an example, if you're building a solution for document processing, one key aspect of this, as we show you, is going to be the AI driving the extraction of data from the documents. Um, Tying that workflow to a specific single model would not be the most smart way to approach this, right? Because you know that in the future there could be some more powerful models to provide you more results. So the way you need to build this is around having that flexibility. And now, just to kind of finalize a bit of the presentation, and so then we can kind of open to some questions. I want to give you an example, a real example. I want to share with you a use case of how Kin has implemented this approach in the context of the specific challenge that we are discussing in this webinar, which is improving the submission process and document processing. Through this approach that I mentioned of being um, a risk first approach, a knowledge first approach, first understanding the problem, then worrying about the technological aspect. And I want to share this with you because we've gotten some amazing results, and I hope that through applying some of these principles, hopefully you can also get some of those uh, benefits on your side. So a couple of months ago, last year, we worked with a U.S. mid-market equipment finance lender on the exact same problem we've been discussing. How do we automate, streamline, improve the whole document processing aspect of originations with a specific focus on intake and submissions? So this lender was processing 2,000 applications a month. Capacity already reached the ceiling. Their team was not being able to capture more volume at that moment, and they didn't want to add more overhead to the process. They knew that more people wasn't going to fix the problem in a scalable way. So let me walk you through what we did to solve this problem. So we did what I just mentioned. We forward deployed. We became the users. So they onboarded us as their operations, submissions, intake team. And we, two people from our team, were actually processing the actual applications for this lender. We were we were actually sourcing them from the email. We were downloading, uploading them, scanning them, creating the manual records into the CRM. So through that process, we were able to obtain an enormous amount of knowledge of how or where the bottlenecks were, where was the friction, what were the things we needed to solve. And we got into a very iterative process where as we were learning every week, we were already embedding this knowledge into the solution we were creating. So it was very iterative. So in a matter of weeks, we have 4 iterations of the solution, of the software, and metrics were great. So just to share a bit of the numbers that we got through this engagement, we were able to reduce in 70% the time it took this lender to process deals. So we took down this time from around 30 minutes to 7 minutes. They saw a 94% increase in volume, in growth volume in 5 months with no additional overhead and headcount added to their team. And the projected annual savings for this year, and it's still growing, it's above $250,000 based on this. But one of the metrics that is the one that I like the most is that adoption, right? Because adoption is also always a challenge when implementing technology. And we were super happy to see that the team chose to use the tool, right? It was not forced into them. So as they started to see the benefit and as the tool iterated and improved, they chose to use it, right? So it was a quite natural process of migration to use the tool, which is something that I also encourage you to always think about, right? Adoption is key. You may have the best AI software implemented in your business, it's the best OCR, it's automating all of your documents, but if no one is using it, then of course no value has been generated from that, right? So I think we're a bit over time, so I'm gonna stop here and maybe leave a few minutes for questions in case you have some questions. Yeah, any questions from the audience, or everything was clear? First, we're also completely open. You have our email, you can always reach out if you have any questions. If you want to explore some of these concepts further, or any way in which we could support you in these efforts of embedding AI and technology into your processes, more than happy to get a conversation going. Perfect. Great. I think there are no questions. So I think we can give you 5 minutes of your time, and yeah, just reach out if you have any questions. Thanks everyone for joining, for your time, and hope to talk to you soon. Bye everyone. Have a good day.